The church doesn't bend with the times or adjust with the masses. You know, it's not a democracy. Isolation as well is another challenge that I've noticed among young people. It's in the technological age. That's the danger of it, and there are challenges to it where it's more of an attraction towards an aesthetic. And in that moment, I really had this just this encounter of love, you know, that is impossible to put into words.
Amazing. So let's get into it.
Let's do it. You mind if we start with a little prayer?
Yeah.
Be great. Awesome.
All right. Thank you for having me here. Would you mind introducing yourself and telling us why you started? What was your vocation?
Yeah, sure. My name's Father Matt King. I was ordained in 2019, so I've been a priest for 6 years now. I spent 9 years in seminary before that, and so it was a lot of time of preparation for becoming a priest. But yeah, growing up, I didn't think about the priesthood very much. I mean, really at all. It wasn't until later on in high school that I attended a youth group event, and at this event, we experienced adoration for the first time, which as Catholics is a moment where we get in front of Jesus in the monstrance, we can see him present there. And they had music going, and it was just a moment where I remember looking around in confusion, seeing a bunch of people praying and singing and talking about their faith and just really into the moment of prayer. And I remember looking around thinking, I'm with a bunch of crazy people. You know, that's what went through my head. But then my next thought was, if you're there, God, I want to know you like they know you. And in that moment, I really had this, just this encounter of love, you know, that is impossible to put into words. And it was just this overwhelming sense of the Father's love. Actually, the image that had come to my mind in that moment was being embraced by the Father. And so from that moment on, everything changed, and I started praying every day, praying the rosary, you know, praying all kinds of devotionals, going to the shrine in St. Augustine. Here in our diocese, we have a national shrine, Our Lady of La Leche. I was going there all the time, and eventually just felt this call, this invitation from Christ to follow him and to enter the seminary and eventually become a priest. And, you know, and it was a long journey of discernment. You know, through those 9 years of seminary, there were moments I thought about leaving. There were moments I was wondering, can I really do this? Am I called to have a wife and children and a family, or is God still calling me to be a priest? And thank God, you know, I was able to become a priest, and I can honestly say there's nothing else I would rather do. I love Archbishop Fulton Sheen, who was an archbishop from a few decades back. He has a great line where he says, if he could be a priest, if he had 100 lives to live, he would choose priests in each one, you know. And I really, I can identify with that sentiment. You know, I feel that in my heart, and I'm just so grateful to God. So currently, I'm at Blessed Trinity Catholic Church here in Jacksonville, which is where we're at right now. I've been the pastor here for 2 years. And it's a great community, and I'm loving it.
Amazing. So you came from a Catholic family. Mm-hmm. Were they really going to the church, or did you just really start this thing on your own?
Yeah, so my family, it's a great question. My family was Catholic and is Catholic, continues to practice the faith. I'm the oldest of 5 children. We grew up altar serving, and we would go to different events at Mass and at the church. My dad was a part of the Knights of Columbus, so we'd be at events for that. So I grew up around the church, and we lived out in the country, lived out in the woods, which was a great place to grow up. You know, grew up fishing, hunting, all that fun stuff. But it was 30 minutes to anywhere, and so we lived a long way away from Publix, the supermarket, for example. So on the way, my mom a lot of times would pray a rosary. And of course, as a kid, I'm like, can we just turn the radio on? You know, I wasn't as into it. But I look back at those moments, and I really think that's where the seed of my vocation started, was in the family. Even though I didn't think about becoming a priest until much later on, I just think those seeds of vocation were really sown in my heart as a young child. And that's the case for any guy that becomes a priest a lot of times. It's the family is the first seminary. You know, that's where everything begins.
And how did they react to you announcing that that's the way you're going to go?
Yeah, I think initially they were pretty surprised, especially after I encountered the Lord in a powerful way for the first time in my life, and like knew I was loved by God, like had this real understanding that changed everything. But then they kind of saw the way the dominoes were falling, and you know that I was moving in a direction of just the fact that I was going down to the shrine several times a week, and I was praying a lot. When I told them that I was going to enter the seminary, Yeah, I don't think it was a shock to them, and they were extremely supportive. And I know that's not always the case for everybody. And so, yeah, I'm very, very grateful for my family. Still very close with all of them.
That's great to hear. Do you have any particular moment during serving here or in other churches you're particularly grateful for, or something that will really stay with you for the rest of your days as a priest?
Oh my gosh.
I'm sure you have plenty, but
that's a great question. And I like to say as a priest, I get a front row seat to God's work in the world. And it seems like, almost every day there's something that happens. I mean, today I was down at the hospital at Baptist South and visiting, praying with somebody who just, is going through a difficult time in their life, and just being able to walk with them. Really, as a priest, it's an adventure every day. You don't know what's going to walk into the door. You don't know what God's going to call me to do. I don't know what He's going to call me to do that day. But as you were saying, the one thing that came to mind is we have a great ministry here at this parish called Servant of the Servants, and they go every Sunday morning to downtown Jacksonville, and they don't just feed the homeless, but they embrace them. They treat them as if they're Christ, because that is Christ there in the poor. And so I love going down there and doing that. And that for me is such a life-giving, it's just such a life-giving experience as a priest. But I would say those are some of the great gifts we get.
Amazing. Let's talk a little about young people. And before that, could you describe a little the community you have here? If you have a lot of young people, if they're really coming with their families or on their own, can you describe a little what it is in your parish? Yeah,
we have a good mix in our parish. It's diverse both culturally and ethnically, but it's also diverse in terms of ages and the different people that come. We have families with young children. We have baptisms. It seems like every weekend we'll have 3 or 4 baptisms of infants and children. But then we also have the elderly, and so we have a good mix. One of my favorite things is that we also have the college campus ministry here at the University of North Florida. And so the college students will come to our 10 a.m. Mass together, and they sit right over there in one of the pews. And usually it's about probably 30 to 50, somewhere around there, that'll attend Mass every Sunday together. It's just inspiring seeing their faith and the way that they're living it.
Do they often come to you to talk about any faith issues or more, life issues? That's something you feel young people are comfortable doing?
Yeah, we have every Thursday a gathering at the local community center where we have the Catholic campus ministry. And we probably get 70 to 90 college students every Thursday there. Come together, we pray. We've got free dinner, so that's a big draw as well. But then we'll have a talk, and then they'll break into small groups, and they'll be able to share among each other. But then we also have sacramental reconciliation available, so a lot of them will come to me one-on-one, and we'll celebrate the sacrament. But then if they're just going through a tough time, I have them reach out several times, and sometimes it's about faith, but a lot of times it's just what they're going through in life. People could just carry crosses, and we all go through difficult seasons. And I'm honored that they're willing to share that cross with me and allow me to walk with them, to be able to help guide them towards Jesus in the midst of their suffering. So that's a lot of times where those conversations go. But sometimes I'll just have a younger person that'll reach out and say, hey, I was thinking about becoming Catholic. I'm interested in learning more about the church. Will you meet with me? And so I'll meet with people in the office and talk through that. But I've noticed that increasing over the past couple of years especially.
Okay. That's good. That's one of my questions as well.
Perfect.
But for a transition, what do you see, Catholics or not, Christians or not, what's for you the biggest spiritual / psychological challenge for a young person today?
Oh man, so many challenges. One of the big challenges I think for young people is just the instability of the world, and also seeing what the world has to offer and all these promises and finding it empty. And I've just noticed, especially recently, just this draw towards anything that has foundation, anything that can logically be followed. And there's this search for truth. And I truly believe if you keep pulling that thread, you're going to end up at Jesus Christ, the person of Jesus Christ, who is truth itself. And so I've just noticed that with young people in particular. But we see the challenges. It's looking around society, particularly here in our culture, and finding the things that the world says that, hey, hedonism is going to make you happy, wealth, honor, power, pleasure, all of these things are going to make you happy, and then realizing, this isn't true. And so they're left wanting, they're left empty. And then it's like, well, where do we go from there? But I've just noticed those are some of the challenges. Isolation as well is another challenge that I've noticed among young people. It's in the technological age, even though we're more connected than ever, we're also more isolated because it's not true communication. It's not, there isn't body language, there isn't intimacy in conversation that a lot of times is present among friendships. When you're in person, it's not the same when it's through the digital realm or technology.
And do you think that the church has somehow the power, not the power, but the means to reach out to those young people? Do you think there is opportunity to really get those people maybe in a church?
Yeah, I think the church, in terms of that, recognizes those challenges. But also the church doesn't bend with the times or adjust with the masses. It's not a democracy because we stand by Jesus Christ and the church that he founded, and we're called to uphold that, that tradition, that teaching. And so the church, but that's something the church has to offer. Rather than, it's not, the church always meets us where we're at. Jesus always meets us where we're at, which is the beautiful thing. Anybody can walk in through the doors here of the church and come to Mass, and they're more than welcome. And I truly believe the great gift that the church has to offer is another way. It's not what the world promises, where you wind up empty, where you wind up in a restlessness, as St. Augustine would say. Our hearts are restless until they rest in the Lord, ultimately. And so it's being able to offer this to every generation for 2,000 years, but now for this current generation, I've just noticed there's a particular fire and a real draw towards it right now.
Yeah, that was a bit my next question. Was a lot of people, at least in France and in Europe, says that religion is dying. The church has not a space anymore. Do you really think that it just evolves in a different way in Western societies?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I've noticed what Pope Benedict XVI said probably 10, 15 years ago is coming true, where we've shrunk a little bit, but it's become stronger. So it's like there has been this turning away from people that were just practicing because it's what our family's always done, or because it's just our culture. We're Catholic, so we go to Mass. There's now this draw towards, all right, why are we doing this? What's the meaning behind this? And the people that are coming to the church are absolutely on fire, and the flame of faith is wildly alive in their hearts. Currently, we have 74 people in our OCIA program, which is the Order of Christian Initiation for Adults. And 74 is a massive number. I mean, I was at a church 5 years ago where we only had 6 people. And so the fact that there's so many people just, flocking to the church, and it's not exclusive for us here at Blessed Trinity. It's not like the pastor here is just doing an awesome job. Like, that's not it. It's more the church in general, and not just Catholics. I've noticed Christians in general, people drawing towards faith.
You said 74 people. Is that completely, let's say, atheists or whatever, converting, or is it coming from non-denominational churches or any type of different churches coming to Catholicism?
Yeah, it's a good mix. And some of them are also people that were baptized Catholic but maybe didn't receive any other sacraments and didn't go to church, so now they're coming back to the faith. A good mix of other denominations, Baptist, Episcopalian, but also, people that come from no faith background.
I'm going to dig into a topic also out of curiosity because, so in France we have this thing back on the topic of the church is dying or the church doesn't attract anymore. A lot of people say it's because of Vatican II, Vatican II, I don't know how you say it.
Vatican II, yeah.
Vatican II. Do you have this type of debate in the US, or is it just not a thing because, I feel life in the US as a Christian is easier? Because especially in the South, everyone's very open about being a Christian.
Very true.
So is that something you have like debates between Catholics about this thing, or is none of you concerned?
Yeah, no, it definitely is a hot topic right now, I would say, in the American Catholic Church in regards to the Second Vatican Council. And really, for us, it's not as much a denial of the Council. I mean, there are definitely sects and groups that do question that, such as the Society of St. Pius X. So we have that, and we actually have a church here in this area. But I would say more in the Catholic, with those in union with Rome, the question is currently is where can we go to a more traditional Latin Mass, because we only offer it at certain churches, and so there's been this little bit of this push and pull, and a lot of younger people have been drawn to that. You know, that's without question. We have the masses we have in our diocese. Yeah, they tend to be more the younger crowd that have been attending that.
In Latin?
This draw in Latin.
Okay, so
yes,
there's kind of a will for a more traditional way of celebrating the liturgy.
Yeah, there's definitely that desire, I would say, from the younger crowd in terms of practicing the faith. Now, what I've noticed with the majority of that group, it's not that they deny the Novus Ordo Mass, so the Mass that 95% of churches celebrate regularly. It's more just this draw towards a sacredness in liturgy, that they feel the connection with God in their hearts. And I can say this about the college students that I walk with. Some of them have that draw and that view, but they're here every Sunday, and they come to Mass here at Blessed Trinity, and they're faithful, and they recognize Jesus is just as present in every Mass around the world in the Catholic churches. But there definitely is a little bit of that tension right now, I would say, in the American Catholic Church.
Yeah, it's really was one of the questions I had is, do they talk about it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Definitely.
Right.
And there are the extremists that do question and do just question the validity of the Second Vatican Council. But that's been the case throughout the councils in the history of the church, that there have always been groups that have denied or, and we really believe that the Holy Spirit is guiding the church, and that the church isn't just a museum for relics, but that it's alive. It's something that's moving, that is being led by the Spirit.
Let's dig into the digital kind of face or way of living, because to my point, I really think that just the church is moving, and I think it's always had, and I think it's moving more towards digital world. Do you personally use any social media? Do you have this type of content? How do you deal with all that on your personal life?
Yes, a little bit about what I spoke about earlier of how God meets us where we're at, and that we don't change our beliefs or practices as a faith based on the day and age, but we do change the way we communicate the gospel. I think about Fulton Sheen, Archbishop Fulton Sheen, who I mentioned earlier. He was a leader out in the face of broadcasting and television. He had his own TV show, and I love the name for it. It was Life is Worth Living, which is such a beautiful thing. It was like the #1 hit TV show back in the 50s. And so we see the church in every age conversing with people in the means that are presented. And this is the case currently. I mean, I think of Father Mike Schmitz, who has the podcast, Bible in a Year. It's the #1 religious podcast on Apple Podcasts. So yeah, it's so important. And I mean, I use the Hallow app. I listen to podcasts all the time. I'm on Twitter or X as it's called now. I'm on Facebook. I never for some reason made the jump to Instagram, but I'm on those two. And then we do things in the parish. We'll have certain events that are digital. We live stream our masses here, so that if people are sick at home and can't make it to church, or if they're homebound, that they can be with us in spirit. So we have those means. And I've been on a couple other podcasts, like the Catholic Talk Show, who I had a good friend help start that up. And so just seeing the way that the church can enter into the age of technology, it's crucial.
And did you have anyone reaching out to you, being interested in discovering the Catholic faith, coming because they listen to this type of things, or they've seen something?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would say that media is playing a big role in this moment of evangelization. This moment of this. John Paul II used to use the term the springtime of the church. Like there's like almost this feeling of a springtime of people drawing towards faith, and I think media is at the forefront I wish I could remember who said it. I heard a line recently that, the printing press started the Protestant Revolution, and that the technological age is going to end it, or the technological, revolution is ending that. And it's kind of this people diving deep into truth. What do I believe? What is my faith based on? What does Scripture actually teach? What do Catholics, actually believe? Because there is I think a big misconception, particularly in the United States, I would say, about who Catholics are, or the question of worshiping Mary or the saints, or that those are big ones that come up, or that we kind of disregard Scripture, where really it's at the heart of our worship, and so I think when people are, because of media, they're able to see what we actually practice and believe, and where those beliefs are coming from. It begins by creating an intrigue, and then a lot of times that intrigue can lead to conversion. And I've seen it many times, thanks be to God, and I've been able to witness that.
And do you think it comes with certain type of challenges sometimes?
So that's the danger of it, and there are challenges to it, where it's more of an attraction towards an aesthetic rather than towards a person. If we're not being drawn towards the person of Jesus Christ, drawn towards love, drawn towards truth, caritas et veritas, truth and charity, then we're missing the point of everything. If it's all about our actions and just kind of the surface level, then it's almost, that's almost like a Pharisaical type faith. And now, it's not saying that we can't start there and God can take us deeper, but it always has to go deeper. Otherwise it won't last. That's not a house built on solid rock, as Christ talks about in the Scripture. And so, if it's not built on Jesus, then it won't really work out. And I've encountered a little bit of that, but most of the time that's more of a phase somebody might go through. And either they go the other way, or they draw towards the church and go deeper and really dive into what the church teaches. Okay,
that's interesting. And I don't know if that's the case in the US, but we do have priests or even monks doing videos on the internet, and you got the diocese that also watches to what has been done, sometimes modifies. Do you have any type of diocese supervision on those things? If you know about it, maybe you don't.
Sure. Yeah, we have a head of communications and media for our diocese, and so a lot of times when we have public statements or statements that are going to be made through media, it comes through that office in the diocese. And so, for example, if a priest has reached out to give a comment about an ongoing issue by the news or some other media outlet, we would reach out to our diocesan office, and that would be kind of where it's filtered through.
Okay. Yeah, do you ever worry that sharing faith content online is just going to become a new piece of content among other, and that the gospel at the end is kind of a piece of content itself?
Absolutely. I mean, if the gospel is just a piece of content, then it's not. It hasn't taken root in our hearts. It's just something that's something we do just for maybe for a moral obligation, or because we want to strive for a good life. Like that. That's a place to start, but it has to go deeper than that, and entering into prayer, entering into Scripture, entering into the sacraments as a Catholic. Like, we always encourage that, because it can't just remain surface level. I mean, that's a concern for every day and age, I would say. I mean that's who I was before I really, because of the mercy of God, encountered the love of God in my life. I was going to Mass, but I was just going to Mass because I had to be there. I was in high school, and I had good parents who were like, "Hey, you're under our roof. You're going to Mass," and I was there because of that. And so. And I know a lot of people, it's just because it's the routine, and so that is there, and that can be there even in the media as well, and in the digital age we're in. But it's always with the hope that something will spark. And we never know how the grace of God's going to work. That's one thing I have learned as a priest. We can't put God in a box. The Lord works in ways. What is it? His ways are not our ways. And so He makes it happen.
Do you think the online environment really shaped a new understanding on how a community works, and do you think that it really reshaped the community in a way, the Catholic community?
Yeah, I think there are pros and cons to the online Catholic or Christian community, the pros are that people aren't alone, that you can get on there and see that there are people with you. My brother, I know I mentioned to you, Anna, he's a YouTube streamer, and he has a group that he gets online with and he prays with, and they challenge each other to grow in virtue and really live it. So we have the good side of it. The challenge there is that it can be isolating, and there's nothing that can replace the in-person communal experience, and I'm not even just talking about attending Mass, that's a whole another conversation. We don't believe that you can just watch Mass online and be good to go. We have to get together for that. But I'm talking more just even in small groups, having Bible studies in person, being able to get together as the Council of Catholic Women or the Men's Club or the Knights of Columbus, being able to get together in person. There's something there that can't be replaced or replicated. That again, online offers that, but it doesn't satisfy that human necessity we have for that connection.
So in France this Easter we had a big rise in the Catholic Church in baptism.
Let's go.
Yeah, I think it was the most in Europe or even in the world. Like, it was really amazing, and it was really the 18 to 30 years old people.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
so I don't know if you had this kind of movement as well in the US. Because we also think it's also because of social media, but also I think we talked about at the beginning a little this feeling of wanting to be part of something, of wanting to find something that is meaningful. So I don't know if you experienced anything like that in the US.
Yeah, absolutely, and the numbers are out there, and I might be kind of fabricating a little bit here, but I know that our diocese published something, and I want to say it was over 900 people in our diocese became Catholic last year, which I believe was a record, they said, or it goes back to the 1960s. Since the 60s, we haven't had a number that large. Okay. So there has been a huge draw in the United States towards faith in general, and I'm so happy to hear that Europe's in the same boat.
Especially France really has been big, but I think it's also due to the fact that Catholicism, and it's a bit the case in Quebec as well, Canada, of it's coming to be associated with the French culture and nationalism almost. Gotcha. So I think it's also reaffirming our Christian roots.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. So I think it's kind of a package.
Wow. And do you think the church could use a bit more opportunities on social media to maybe wanting to bring more people?
I do. I mean, I really do. I as a Catholic, I believe, and again, only by the mercy of God and because Jesus Christ gave the authority to Peter and the apostles, that we have the fullness of truth, and that we're and if we have that, if we have this great thing that is going to bring people peace, that is the way, the truth, and the life, that is going to bring them fulfillment in their lives, I don't want to keep it to myself. I want as many people to come join us as possible, and so there is that desire for evangelization, and I would say we're in an age of evangelization right now. I know that our bishop in our diocese, Bishop Polmeyer, it's a huge emphasis. He even created an office in our diocese, the Office of Evangelization, because we're called to go out. I mean, it's the Great Commission from Jesus to the apostles: go out to all nations, preaching the good news. And in 2025, the good news a lot of times is communicated through the internet space, through the digital realm. And so we are called to do that, I believe. Yeah. Something
very obvious on some YouTube channels, for example, for some people, is that they associate the religious questions to political questions. Do you think that's something that should be online and that anyone could do and should do? Because we've been talking about, let's say, priests on the internet, but sometimes people like me, like anyone. Do you think it's something that should be openly debated on the internet?
I firmly believe that as Christians, we are called to speak truth to the world, and sometimes that is in a political realm, or it has at least political ramifications. I have no desire to ever be political in any way. I mean, you can ask my people, I never talk about politics specifically. And there's the whole side of the law of the states that we live in, and being a nonprofit organization. And so that's already there as well. But it's not even because of that. Even if that wasn't there, that's not my job. I'm not called to tell people who to vote for or what political ideology to adhere to. I'm called to preach the gospel, which is Jesus Christ and Christ crucified. Now that message has ramifications on our lives and invites us to live a moral life and to embrace heroic virtue. I mean, that's the lives of the saints that we're called to strive to embody. And so with that, sometimes there are political realities. As Catholics, we believe in the sanctity of human life from conception until natural death. And other things that, other aspects of life that pertain to politics and enter into the political realm, but it wouldn't be something that, we have to identify solely with this political party or this one over here, because that's not the reality. It's Jesus Christ didn't found a political party. He founded a church, and so I would say in that, there's a challenge, there's a balance there, and sometimes the gospel is challenging, and I'll share, one of the things that I've encountered just as a parish priest is every now and then I'll get an email from a parishioner that will say, hey, here's this heroic priest giving this message, and it might be a homily from somebody, but it's somebody that identifies with their political party of choice, and so it's a heroic priest in their eyes because he's affirming what they're saying. For me, the gospel blesses me for sure, but it also challenges me. It's not meant to just say, hey, Matt, you're doing a great job, continue on with your life. Like, no, it's meant to challenge me at times. And so I would say anytime there is a public figure in the church endorsing one political party or another, or one candidate or another, that's not the call of Christ. The call that we have, is to preach that Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life. And that again applies to politics. We're called to speak the truth to politics, but we're not called to gain our identity there. I really feel that it can become an idol in our lives. As Christians. And a lot of times it can happen subconsciously, that we look to politicians or we look to political ideologies to save us. But there's only one person that can save us, it's Jesus Christ the Lord. But sometimes those thoughts and those feelings and desires can creep into our hearts and our lives, and we can miss the fact that we're called to follow Jesus, not a particular politician.
And would you say it's very common what you're saying about a priest or anyone from the clergy identifying with a politician? Do you think it's pretty common, or do you think the majority might be a bit more like you, like that's not my business, I don't talk about those things? I
would say the majority of priests that I know in this area embody the spirit of wanting to preach the gospel above all things, of wanting to proclaim the message of Jesus Christ of love, peace, and hope, rather than a particular religious or a political affiliation. We're really blessed here in this area. I have not encountered a lot of that. I see them online. I get sent the videos by people on both sides, of the aisle in the United States, as we have a major two-party system for the majority.
My last question on the topic is: do you feel or do you think that the Catholic voice has a good representation in the more traditional media? Like you have your spot to be able to speak?
Yeah, it was interesting hearing you mention about in France how part of the draw of young people, it's this nationalism, going back to your roots of Christianity. Here in the United States, Catholics haven't been the majority, as opposed to a lot of Europe, where we see in Italy or France or Ireland, for example. So in the United States, it's been more of a Protestant experience. And just they've been the majority for a long time. And so it is different in terms of media. But I would say whether or not we have our voice in the national media, I don't know. And I don't even know if we're meant to, I don't even know if that's something we necessarily should pursue. I think as long as we keep proclaiming, the gospel message and seeking to draw souls to Christ, I think that's the bigger goal, or the end goal for us, as opposed to maybe fighting for a voice in media.
All right, let's dig into the USA specific. How does it feel to have an American Pope?
Yeah, I had heard about Cardinal Prevost before the election happened back in May, but I didn't know much about him. And he had been outside the United States. I want to say it was for 40 years or so down in Peru, and he was involved in ministry down there. So it was very surprising because we have our American cardinals like Cardinal Dolan or Cardinal Supich, who we're familiar with. We weren't as familiar with Cardinal Prevost, but no, when I heard his name and when I found out he was an American, I was just shocked, to be honest. That was my first reaction. I remember growing up, my mom telling me we would never have an American Pope, in our lifetime, and I really believed that. I do think that Pope Leo, having lived with the Augustinians and exercised his ministry outside the United States, played a big role in that, and just his presence in Peru, his love for the people there, played a big role in that. But no, it's a great joy, a great blessing. It's really cool is just being able to hear a Pope speak and share his thoughts and words and in English, because I'm challenged in other languages. I can kind of get by in Spanish, but to be able to hear the Pope speak English is pretty awesome. Yeah.
What were the reactions of the parishioners? Or did they come to you, or?
Oh yeah, the parishioners were very excited. We got holy cards for all of our parishioners of Pope Leo. We had a huge celebration. The idea of an American Pope was just similar to me. People were pretty mind blown by it. It was unexpected, but no, very positive overall. And I think it's been a very, I don't know if it's a honeymoon phase or what it is with Pope Leo, but there is this beautiful time with him where, and I think part of that's just him. I mean, his demeanor, his personality. It's just very warm, very hospitable, very approachable, I would say.
Speaking more about something I think very American specific, especially here in the South, the big churches, evangelical or non-denominational, I'm always getting lost. There are so many.
Oh yeah.
What are your thoughts about it? Do you think it's something that is increasing, or is it something maybe that do not attract so much? And how does it affect maybe the Catholic outreach?
It's very present. Here in Jacksonville, it's present. And
would you mind explaining a little what it is and everything?
Sure.
I'm not sure everyone's going to be familiar.
Absolutely. Yeah, so here in the South in particular, and here in Jacksonville even, we have many non-denominational churches that don't ascribe to a particular denomination or hence the name, non-denominational. But they seek to, from my understanding, to follow the words of Scripture. They're a Bible-based community, and a lot of them are very large. I mean, we have one here in Jacksonville that's huge and has satellite churches around as well. 1122, exactly. And I know some wonderful people who are part of those churches and who practice the faith and really know Jesus. And just to share thoughts on that as a Catholic, I would say, like my prayer, just as a Catholic priest, is always, it's the prayer of Jesus, ut unum sint, that they may be one. We hear Jesus in the Gospel of John praying that to the Father, that they may be one. I mean, I pray one day we'll all be united, and obviously as a Catholic priest, I do believe we have the fullness of truth through the sacramental life of the church, which is the sacraments are the basis for our faith, because they were given to us by Jesus, to the apostles, which have been passed down for 2,000 years. But it's not to throw water on these other denominations or these other people that are practicing the faith. I mean, I think it's beautiful that they have come to know Jesus, and there are gifts there in those communities, and there is validity in their in the basis of their faith, and so it's not to discount them either. But I would love one day, my prayer is that we all may be one, and that they may be drawn to the sacramental life of the church one day, God willing.
And do you think it's still they have more members coming in, or is it more that young people might be more attracted to a Catholic or Anglican church? I don't know. Sure.
I would say that faith overall is drawing young people. So I've seen both here in the Catholic Church, but I would say just as well in the non-denominational or other denominations in general. I'm not as familiar with like Anglican or Episcopalian, how they're where they're at, but in terms of the non-denominational, I mean, I know a lot of young people who are attending 1122, for example. So I think, it's just this draw towards faith in general.
When you think about Catholics outside of the US, for example, let's take France where we have a really secular state. What are your thoughts about it? How do you as a Catholic in the US see the European Catholics right now?
Yeah, it really was just awesome to hear. It brought a lot of joy to my heart when you were sharing about just faith in France and how people are being drawn towards that. Because that has been the word that I've received is more the secularization of Europe,
it is
in
as
general.
Well, but I think it's both ways, I think.
And I mean, we have that here in the United States too, but it's great to hear that there is that spark. I mean, I've even heard in Ireland as well that I know some young people that went and served as missionaries over there, and that they're seeing that spark, that it's slowly starting to come back, and these areas that were so Christian, that were so, just blanketed in faith for so many centuries, the past 50, 60, maybe even 100 years that faith was kind of shaken, and to hear that they're coming back to their roots, it just brings me a lot of joy. But I mean, in my mind, like when I think of Europe or think of France, I do think of just how, and just hearing about, they have these beautiful churches, but not as many people that go to Mass, and it's kind of sad, I just was in Italy, I led a pilgrimage over there back in April, and I love it. I love Italy. It's one of my favorite places in the world. It's awesome. Oh, you can't beat it. But to see the churches they have. I mean, we don't have the pretty churches over here, It's just great to hear that. But even when we were in Italy, going to a daily Mass and not seeing that many people. But the beautiful thing is we had an Italian tour guide who was Catholic, and he shared, he said, people are starting to come back to Mass. And he even said, he's like, we got to keep praying the rosary and asking Our Lady's intercession there. And so that was great to hear.
All right. How does the church and the state I don't know if it is a church because you have plenty, but religion, I'd say, and the state work in the US? Because you got a president taking an oath on a Bible. So how does that work? But at the same time, I think you have a First Amendment or something that says that there is no interference.
Yeah.
So how does that work?
Absolutely, yeah. So there is a separate, no, absolutely, and that's definitely a long conversation, and one that I'm probably ill-equipped to have, at least just on camera. But it just in general, absolutely, just in general, we have the separation of church and state, which one of the first bishops in the United States, Archbishop Carroll, he was a big proponent of that. He supported that. When that was being talked about and discussed, having that separation, so that again, and it goes even back to our discussion of politics, so that it doesn't just become politics we talk about, but we talk about the important things. We talk about the life of the church and the gospel and who Jesus is, rather than just politics. And so having that separation can be healthy. That being said, I mean, each politician has their own religious affiliation or beliefs, or none if they don't have any. And so that's where in the United States there's a little bit of there's this, I would say even at times, healthy tension, of discourse and just of disagreement, but also it leads us towards the most vulnerable having a voice as well. And so different representation there, which is a huge part of just being an American, having that representation. So seeing that side of it, but no, I think it's healthy having that separation of church and state there. But you're right, we do, like when a president's sworn in, his hands on the Bible, and so there are those the foundation. Knowing the founding fathers had some kind of Christianity, at least ingrained in them, even if it was just from a moral standpoint and deist kind of perspective.
To close a little the conversation, so there is hope in the future of the church. So what really keeps you hopeful when you think about church's future? Oh
my gosh, well, I mean, at the end of the day, it's that, as St. Catherine of Siena says, the world is our ship, not our home, and that we're here on this earth for a finite amount of time, but our whole goal is that we're journeying towards our homeland, God willing, and that we're called to bring as many people with us as we can. And right now I'm seeing that. Like, it's an exciting time to be a Christian. It's an exciting time just to follow Jesus. And not that it's always exciting in any day and age, but I would say right now in particular. And and it's just seeing people not afraid to proclaim the faith, seeing the boldness and seeing the draw of young people in particular. It's very inspiring, and I'm excited to be a part of that.
Amazing. Can you give me one book, a prayer, or spiritual practice that inspires you and you would like to share?
Well, my favorite spiritual book of all time is probably the Confessions of St. Augustine. If somebody hasn't read that, I would really encourage them to do that. An introduction to the devout life by St. Francis de Sales is awesome. There's so many in the great history of the faith. One of the more contemporary book, which is short and it's an easy read, is by Father Walter Chiswick, who served as a missionary, and he went to the Soviet Union just post World War II, and so he has a book called He Leadeth Me, just about his time in Russia, and just being in solitary confinement for several years, and his experience there of living the faith of not living the faith, of his struggles in that. It's really a powerful book and just a testament to God's presence in the darkest places. In terms of prayer. There's one prayer in particular, it's not super common, but I love, it's called the Prayer of Abandonment by Blessed Charles de Foucauld. And it's short. If you Google the Prayer of Abandonment, you'll find it. It's one of my favorites that I give out in confession, or just people that are going through difficult times, I give it to them as well.
Amazing. Final word for a young person searching for a meaning, but not necessarily, it doesn't really feel like going to church yet?
Yeah, just keep searching. That's the biggest thing. I think a lot of times we give up the search, and a lot of times we think that we have to then go find God, but at the end of the day, it's God has always been pursuing us. It's the hound of heaven, that calls after us. And so to continue being open to truth, to continue that search, not to give up, not to give in to, again, the empty promises of hedonism, of wealth, power, honor, pleasure, but to know that there is another way, that will have true peace, and that's the peace that goes beyond all understanding. And so, to continue that journey, don't give up, keep searching, and if we sincerely are in a search for truth, it will only end up at one place, which is Jesus Christ.
Amazing, thank you so much.
Absolutely,
I think we can finish
Anna.
on that. That was great.
Thank you for having me. No, this has been awesome.